Welcome. We know all of you already chomping at the bit. The chat is buzzing as we're live before lock, just under an hour now before the slate locks on this one game between the Hawks and the Bucks. And yes, some gigantic news coming out regarding Trae Young, and we'll get to that right away, and how that impacts the game, how that impacts the slate, both sites from DraftKings to FanDuel. But, of course, you are all fortunate as we have Rinpack in the house, ready to rock and roll for the next 60 here and attack as many angles as humanly possible. At Rinpack on Twitter, at Shander Show. For me, Tyler producing, No House Advantage presenting the show, and a bunch of other things we're going to tell you throughout on Awesemo. What's up, brother?
Yeah, another game 6 to talk about. Exciting news coming up. Trae Young's going to try to suit up and play. How healthy is he? We only know so much, but should be exciting to break it down for DFS and single game contests. Obviously, game 5, we saw a Bucks explosion. Brolo looking like an all-star. Bobby Portis looking like an all-star. They were just rolling all over the Hawks.
There are a couple of different narratives to it and just different angles, I think, we look at even outside of Trae Young. And there were two things that I think the chat was buzzing about the most before the show began. And that was, one, Trae Young, just because it's going to impact so many different areas of the game tonight. And the other was, will we see Rinpack shoot dark liquor tonight?
I mean, it's gonna take a lot tonight to do it, because as we got the news, I hadn't been able to build any lineup, so it's gonna take a whole bunch of likes to make that happen. So maybe the chat can make that happen today.
Yeah, I think we could set a decent number. Look, we're at 115 now. We've got 700 people watching. That's not a great ratio. We love the likes, but we can definitely bump that up. You should be out there bumping that up to narrow the gap here between ratio. But as far as the number itself is concerned, like, what would it take? How many likes would it take for you to shoot continuously and set your rosters not drunk but buzzed?
It's gonna take like 1,000 likes.
1,000, that's doable. Be careful what you say out there, because
at least 1,000 likes. Yeah, and then maybe at the end of this show we can make something happen.
Fair enough. All right, my friend, I love it. Now, the game itself, I mean, nothing happens without Trae Young. So yeah, normally we talk about the overall showdown strategy. We do talk some injuries outside, and we know Giannis is out. Bogdanovich looks fine, even though he's still technically listed as probable with his knee. But really, everything starts and ends with Trae Young. So let's start now. And I guess there are two angles to really talk about, Ryan. First and foremost, it's Trae Young and how much you're getting to him, and really what the physical of is Trae Young playing on both sides, even from captain to MVP. And the other is what the hell to do with Lou Williams now. Well,
Lou Williams takes a huge hit. That's going to take a huge hit. I don't expect Lou Will to start. Now, there are a lot of ways Lou Will can still get there. If Trae Young comes out and re-aggravates that injury, there's obviously a non-zero chance that can happen. Lou Will can still put on a show and put on some damage. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to play Trae Young because they think he's near 100%. We saw, I think, the most recent injury situation that happened. I guess James Harden coming back from a hamstring. He somehow found a way to play 40 minutes. He was very limited. I expect Trae Young to be limited in some sort of fashion today. And obviously, it doesn't really help anyone, Trae Young returning on the Hawks, besides Trae Young. Obviously, he's going to take his fair share of shots. And it does maybe help Capella secure his minutes a bit more. Him and Trae Young have a good two-man game going. Trae Young's an awesome lob passer to Capella. And I think Capella will find his way to play a little bit more than 21 minutes today. But yeah, Trae Young returning doesn't help anyone on the Hawks really besides him. He's going to be out there. And at that price tag, I'm a little skeptical just because I don't know how healthy he is. And just him being like at that price tag, I just feel so much more confident on the other side of things. The Bucks I just feel like we know who are going to take the lead number of shots, very condensed rotation. There's a lot of different externalities in the Hawks rotation where like we don't know what's going to happen. Like, outside of Lou Will, Cam Reddish, there's just so many moving parts with the Trae Young being back. What is Nate McMillan really going to do? And it's tough to pinpoint that rotation.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, just based off of how you were explaining Trae Young and kind of your strategy towards him, that you're not looking to roster him much as a captain. Probably not a smart idea to roster him as an MVP by any means on FanDuel.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just prefer the Bucks players in Middleton and Drew Holiday, even almost in a raw point setting, I just think they're just better off. And I think your ceiling is higher. I just think there's more cons heading Trae Young's way than there are the Bucks guys, and especially in Middleton and Drew Holiday.
It's crazy because with Trae Young out there, we know that there are going to be people like Lou Williams. It's definitely going to be limited. So I think the obvious now is don't rush, right, to roster Trae Young in cash lineups. Like that doesn't change. Just because he's in doesn't mean that we should rush to roster him in cash lineups.
Yeah, I'm gonna run things through in a little bit. Maybe I can give you a proper answer in about 15 to 20 minutes.
Fair enough.
To reconfigure everything. It really comes down to how many minutes does one thing Trae Young is going to play. So I'm pulling things up right now. I feel like a lot of projection systems have him playing around in the high 30s of minutes, but honestly, his floor of minutes could be low 30s. He could just be coming out flat and just, I saw the pregame warmups before Game 6. Obviously, there's been travel involved. He was grimacing through those pregame warmups, as we were talking before the show. And how much more healthy is he? Is he going to be full go, have that explosion, that burst, being able to cut, being able to move off ball? Those are all really important things for Trae Young to hit that ceiling. I just don't think he has all of that going for him today. And that price tag, there's some other guys similar price to him who could kind of outscore him raw points, as we saw on the Bucks side of things.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Just looking at it from on the court tonight, I feel like there could be, unless he's giving you 30 plus points, he might be more of a liability on both sides, to where if he's not producing offense for you. And look, we've talked about this pre-show. I do think the one path for success from Trae Young, maybe more so from a betting standpoint than from a DFS standpoint, would be his ability to facilitate. If he's out there, there are going to be eyes on him. It's not like they're just going to let him shoot. So he will be able to facilitate. But other than that, if he's not able at full strength, like you mentioned, grimacing, not really looking physically like we've seen Trae Young, that limits his ability to slash, that limits his ability to create a shot. And then on defense, you know that Milwaukee is going, it doesn't matter if it's through rotation, if it's Drew Holiday, somebody is going to be able to, or at least try to victimize him on defense where he's not the same. So to your point, that might limit his minutes on top of it.
Yeah, so that's and it's Drew Holiday, world-class defender. We know that all NBA defender, and it's like the toughest task for someone coming off an injury to just go up against that defense. And I think you nailed it there. It's going to be really interesting to see how healthy he is. And that's going to dictate not only the game, their series, their season, but more importantly, our DFS lineups heading into tonight.
All right. So as we all crunch and look and take the news now with Trae Young in the lineups and seeing how accordingly you all adjust out there, we do have to look at Giannis's exit, how that impacts also this ridiculous game that Brook Lopez had in Game 5 now with Milwaukee as a 2.5-point road dog. I'm interested to see an odd shopper, of course, is where we're going to keep our eyes on it and make sure that we can give you the best number. It's up to 3.5 for Milwaukee. So there are 3 books on odd shopper that are going to get you 3.5 for Milwaukee. So real quick, before we just look at some other guys and move away from the Trae Young train, I am curious just to how you see it, because I'll apply the DFS thinking to the betting thinking, which is Trae Young tonight, Game 6, does not move the line for me. So if it's moving the line for me, I'm more than happy to take that extra point, maybe even 1.5 before tip.
Yeah, I thought it was going to move at least 0.5 point. If that's the case, I might have to.
You might have to jump in.
Yeah, I might have to sprinkle something in before tip off.
I like it.
We got to monitor that line though. Yeah, that's something that's really interesting. I thought it would move a little bit more, but yeah, I guess they know something. Oh, sorry. It moved a
point. Yeah, because before the news came out, even when we put the run sheet together and Trae Young was still GTD, it was at 2.5. So where I see it both here in PA and on Odd Shopper, which of course these books are all here in PA as well. I just say PA because I may be looking at even more books, but it's moved a point. Absolutely. And just to confirm that locally, yeah, I mean, it's dropped now from 3.5 to 3. It's probably going to be off the board and move back up. Here's the thing though. The only way it goes back to 2.5 is if it's been heavily bet that way. I don't see it necessarily going any higher. I feel like 3.5 might be the cap because so many people are going to be like, holy shit, I could get 3.5 points for a closeout scenario in Milwaukee or for Milwaukee. I'm going to jump on that. So you're absolutely right. We'll definitely monitor it, but I thought it was at least interesting to see that at least the arrival of Trae Young moved that 1 full point in this case, our favor for Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's going to be that's interesting to see. I still like the Bucks side of things. I think they're even with I'm assuming a limited Trae Young. I think the Bucks is still like are a better team. Granted, the Hawks have more depth. I just think they just have two of the best 3 players in the game right now. In the game that's going to happen tonight. So that's why I think I don't mind taking the Bucks side of things, especially if you're getting 3.5. That's
And look, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's something I think I will do by the end of the show. So
I love it, man. Well, look, you may lose that value. So if you need a couple of seconds here to place a wager, I'll filibuster for you, brother. By all means, just like I did last time when you went up and got that whiskey. I can talk if you need the time. I
got the phone right here. We're good to go.
There you go. Okay, you're good to go. I do think, though, that you've presented some really good opportunity to be underweight to Trae Young in a game and really have an advantage here where if Trae Young pans out kind of how you laid out and how I feel as well, so many people are getting to him. I mean, he's at 62.6% owned. This is free, by the way, our ownership tool for you tonight. So you should be taking full advantage of this. We also have on the baseball side of it, the main slate ownership projections, but really the Showdown single game ownership project. There's one game. So it's not like we had the big board. It's not like we had something else for you for free. We purposely are giving you this free because it's the one game. And all we ask back is a like, a subscription. And if you want to be part of our Awesemo Plus, $29.95 a week. But using that, I think that you have created a really good pathway now to be underweight to Trae Young for the most part and take advantage of how highly owned he is across the slate.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I'm going to do. And hopefully it works out for me. I've been under the Trae Young wagon the pretty much the whole playoffs. It has burned me more times than not. It is what it is. I'm just going to be under him one more time. And I just think there are a lot of things favoring my decision than otherwise. So that's how I feel. I just like the Bucks side of things. I like their pathway to succeeding more than I do Trae Young.
Captain for Milwaukee, it's probably going to cash lineups, I imagine. Tournament's a little different, but it's probably going to rotate between Middleton and Holiday for you, I imagine.
Oh, yes, most likely. And we saw Brook Lopez be the winning lineup, and yes. Alex had that lineup that took it down. So, yeah, you can mix and match a little bit in tournaments, large field tournaments. We see a lot of different things can happen. You can leave money on the table. You could definitely do that on a one-game slate. It'll make your lineup different than most. So, but more likely Drew and Middleton. Maybe Middleton is a little overowned in the captain spot just because he was the highest scorer last time out. But we'll see how much their captain ownership comes in at. But those two are my preference for sure.
Are you getting to any more so than I feel like Holiday is? They're both going to be out there, but Holiday is the less volatile. Right. I mean, Middleton, that guy could be dead for 3 quarters and all of a sudden wake up, or he could kind of stay quiet for 4 quarters. Yeah.
And I just think you're just going to expect Middleton to still take him and Holiday, the combined potentially take 55, even maybe upwards of 60 shots if Brook Lopez doesn't get going the way he did in game 5. It's just they're just going to control the offense. And yes, like you said, Middleton is just has been kind of up and down in this series, but obviously overall very consistent basketball player. And yeah, I think Drew Holiday just having the ball more in his hands. I like his ceiling compared to Khris Middleton's. And and I think maybe the field is not as high as on Drew as they are on Middleton. So that's maybe one way to differentiate your lineup.
Is there a third option that actually, you know what? Did see the super chat here. So let's get to that. Big money NJ, you guys hooked me up. Nice score, great contest, pays it forward. Happy 4th, brothers. All right, so even if you're just giving us a shout, we want to make sure that we acknowledge the super chat. The premium Slack is up and running as well, so if you have a question here for Rinpack, make sure you hit us up. You can tag as well, and we'll get everything for you answered. But looking at a third option, more so on FanDuel, I feel like, because with the captain spot, especially in tournaments, you're going to have some variety. I don't know if that's the case necessarily in a cash game on DraftKings for you, but if it is, then that's fine. You can answer that. But I'm just saying, as far as FanDuel is concerned, is there a third option across the board, like maybe Brook Lopez or anybody on Atlanta that you can justify slotting as the MVP?
So I'm on the inclination of probably going to be under the field on any other third captain. I feel like Brook Lopez had that super ceiling game. We might see him come in a little overowned than his actual potential expectations, coming off his career best playoff game, in my opinion. So if there is a hawk that you want to play an MVP, and depending on your risk tolerance, in terms of like minutes, and I think Bogdanovich is now healthy, it might be Bogdanovich. And then I'm going to have to look at Trae Young, just because there's a chance this guy's completely healthy and ready to go. And just to sprinkle him a little bit, I'm a little bearish on that happening, but I'm just going to keep saying it, reiterate. I like the Buck side of things compared in a DFS perspective, betting perspective, just like the Buck side of things than the Hawks today. It might bite me, but it's something that I got to make a little sort of stand on a 1-game slate, and hopefully it works out in my favor.
No, I love it. And in fact, I have a couple of lineup scenarios that I'm glad you laid that out, because I think that we can have some fun with the lone hawk, if you will. And I'll push that a little further there. Jets World on the premium Slack has no idea what to do with Capella in single bullet 555 DK GPP. That's big money right there. And look, across the board, I think people are concerned or curious or maybe confused if this is the night to trust Clint Capella, especially when you look at the slate where there is a drop from cost. If you're going to a guy like Cam Reddish, Lou Williams, we've pretty much said stay away because of what's happening with Trae Young, or if you want to go even lower on cost. So I don't know what you do if you, maybe the term is trust Capella tonight, or how much you trust Clint Capella tonight.
So I think looking at Capella's price tag at $12,000, if I'm completely fine leaving money on the table and just going to Brook Lopez. Now, if you have Lopez in your lineup, that becomes a really interesting decision. It becomes him or Collins. Collins at 11.5 and Capella coming at 12,000 on the FanDuel utility salary. See, with Capella, I feel like we saw his floor in minutes in 21. He has not played north of 30 minutes outside of game one, the game that they won, which was his best game. Obviously went 12 and 19, 12 points, 19 rebounds. We haven't seen that sort of game yet. And I think with Trae Young coming back, maybe Trae Young just wants to get going to facilitate again. There's an upside for Capella. We saw it in game one. He's going to be quite low owned for that upside. All you need Capella is to crack mid-30s minutes, potentially, barring any foul trouble. Maybe they figure out a defensive scheme where they use him more to potentially be in the perimeter with Brook Lopez and like control Lopez being in the paint. He obviously didn't do a good job of it. We saw Kongu get a lot of minutes throughout, more minutes than he usually has seen. So as a last guy in, I'm fine with it. Just know his floor is what we saw, 21 minutes. And Capella at 21 minutes won't get the job done more times. Like 21 minutes is not enough for Capella. He needs mid-30s minutes to pay off that sort of price tag.
Do you see a scenario, and I know they change by the night, by the slate, I get it, but do you see a scenario tonight where Capella is the low guy and in the optimal lineup simply because he didn't hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, Capella, not to hurt you, because this game, we've seen blowouts where mediocre studs just like get there with mediocre scoring. Like, for example, we look at game 4 when Giannis hyperextends that knee. He was in the optimal and he did not play the rest of the game. I mean, he was in the winning lineup. I'm not sure if he was in the optimal, but he was in that winning lineup. And yeah, that could definitely happen. For Capella to get there, he needs to be active on the boards, catch a handful of lobs from Trae, get that double-double bonus on DraftKings, and you're slowly finding yourself him being in the top 5 scorers of the night. And usually that's going to land you at the right spot.
You think you're going to get to him much in cash lineups at all, even if he's that last guy in?
I think I'm just going to come in a tad bit above the field. He's a starter. Yeah. There are pathways for him to be successful. So I'm going to come in a little bit above the field. A cash lineup, it'll be a little risky. I just think I'm just going to try to jam in my Bucks for those cash lineups. I just feel confident in those Bucks minutes.
It's great, man. I feel like there's a really good, like the Hawk that could probably do well as like that lone hawk if you wanted to just load up with bucks is probably going to be like Gallinari, right? Of all people, because of the cost and what you're going to get from him.
And look, I think I've always been kind of a Gallinari stan since he came into the league. I think he is an amazing offensive talent. He's 6'10", 6'11", obviously terrible defender. But Gallinari is someone on DraftKings where you get the 3-point bonus. We have seen Gallinari get on fire. And there are ways where he's in that closing lineup if this game is close for a free throw reasons, offensive reasons. If they're down a lot, he can come on the court. So his only a real weakness is his defense. And we've seen him not be on the court for those reasons. But like you said, Gallinari being a guy who has we've seen him close in the past. So that can definitely happen.
Archuleta 22 on the premium Slack asking, doing a single entry, both sites, if I'm playing Trae Young. And I would just always defer to you here. But based off of your reasoning, I feel like I can definitely get to cash lineups that I would then play on a single entry tournament that do not have Trae. I don't want to take the risk on Trae Young, especially if I'm looking, as you laid out earlier, Rinpack, how there's going to be so many people jumping on Trae Young. Why not go underweight to the field, especially because of the injury concerns? So I'll defer to you to that answer. But for me, as far as being asked that, I don't have any problem. And the answer is no, I don't have any problem not getting to Young on single entry tournament games.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with that. I think I'm kind of an advocate for that, the way I've started off this thing. And I know what the risk is with that. He goes up and lights it up like he did in game one. So be it. I live with that.
Take that hit too. All right.
Yeah.
You and I. And now, to be fair, if I had laid all of that out and you stepped in and said, Shander, you're out of your freaking mind. No, you must roster Trae Young in your single entry lineups, cash lineup. Then I would have gone right there. I would have gone to the phone. I would have done it right there. So I didn't want anybody to think that I was locking you into anything. It's the opposite here.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't notice in game 5 that we just saw, Nate McMillan did kind of a mini hockey line change when they got down so quickly in the first quarter. And that's if the Bucks come out blazing and if Trae Young just looks flat, he might get pulled for Lou Will. It could happen. There's a non-zero chance that can happen, but I expect he's very close to 100%. That's why they're rolling him out. He is their franchise player, and they don't want to risk. They must know there's no risk of making it worse. I've always thought that was a very risky line for people to say after what happened to Kevin Durant 2 years ago in the finals. So we'll see how those minutes limit looks like for him today, if there is one.
Bryson Henry on the super chat, how much Capella, as we just laid out a lot here with Capella, I think more just from a projection standpoint, how much Capella to have in 20 lineups, DK, GPP, and just kind of looking at his ownership, or at least where we have him projected owned. He's the 5th highest owned guy at 47.5%. So again, you mentioned overweight to the field. So even still 20 lineups, that may be 10. 12?
That would put you at 50%. I don't know if he's...
Well, you being overweight to the 47.5, I'm thinking...
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. That this is on DraftKings?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that I think that's fine. Yeah, you can even go to 9, coming in with a little field. It's a 20 max tournament, so his ownership might be a little bit lower there as well.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's kind of where, just to kind of maneuver around. All good here. So now looking at... We mentioned Brooke Lopez, kind of some guys here in the middle. I do want to really focus on what you were saying, really where your mind is tonight, so heavy on Milwaukee, because I think there are a couple of different paths to success. Reminder here to leave us with a like when you show up. 289. Remember, we have that 1K mandate. The gauntlet was thrown down, not drunk, but buzzed rostering with Rinpack. Can we call it buzz rostering with...
That could happen. We'll see how the chat feels. The chat should join us.
Hey, All we need is 1K likes. All right. The gauntlet was thrown down. It wasn't by me. I didn't throw that number out. I thought it was going to be 1,500, maybe 2K. 1K is doable, but we shall see. And reminder, it's not just that like, subscribe as always, but to give you an opportunity to do more with what we're doing here, from the premium tools to the Awesemo Plus Platinum community. And all you need to do in order to take full advantage of that, 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just use our code at checkout, NBA Live Before Lock. It's easy. It's one word. It's all caps. It's the name of the show. So you should know exactly what it is. You could even open up a new window right now. Check out, bump up from Awesemo Plus to Awesemo Plus Platinum. Keep the volume on, and you won't even miss anything that we have to say. With the Milwaukee theory that you have here, if we can dub it that tonight, right? With how you're approaching it, it's basically how I see it in my head, a bunch of green and one red. Is that pretty much how you have it?
I think there are going to be lineups like that. I don't think I'm like actively trying to do that, just because I kind of let the projections do their thing at times. But if I fall in that lineup, I'm not going to be like, oh, scared away from it, just because that's how much I like the Bucks. And if I just think they're going to bounce back, whatever game plan that they had for game 5 worked. Obviously they won and they started out guns blazing, and they did slow it down as Atlanta got going in the second half. But I just think condensed rotation. There's not a reinsertion of a all-star player, all NBA-esque player in Trae Young in their lineup today. So it's just more Bucks, and I just think a lot of their salaries are still kind of favorable. Obviously, they've all gone up, but they're just going to play. Their starters going to play mid to high 30s minutes, and they don't even need to produce like they did on game 5. They just need to be hovering it just right around it. And I think some guys can perform better. I don't think Brook Lopez can perform as well as he did in game 5, but I think Jrue Holiday and Middleton can perform even better. Because I think they're going to, McMillan's game plans is like, maybe we're going to slow down Lopez and not get all these easy like in the paint dunks. He looked like a varsity player playing against the JV team for a good stretch of that game.
Yeah, like, the movies where they lower the rim. It's like the 8-foot rim for Hollywood, and then you have all the different cuts. It's like, you ever see the Hank Gather story? Not to date myself entirely. What am I talking about? I always peg you as older than you are. You're probably thinking like, Hank Gathers. No, we just celebrated. No. But yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking about here. And I agree with you as far as Brook Lopez, where there's definitely going to be a regression to whatever mean it may be in this series, with the opportunity of him to take advantage. And look, I don't think they changed the strategy. Just to focus on Lopez for a second here, I don't necessarily. Why would they? Why I know Budenholzer at times looks like he was just plucked out of the crowd to coach, but why would he change the strategy of what worked with Brook Lopez, right? Make Atlanta adjust. Make Atlanta take Lopez out of the game before you place him back behind the 3-point line.
Yeah, that's what I think it's going to happen. Another thing in the game theory aspect of it, an easy way to get different in Showdown and single game contest is look for the guy who had a super ceiling performance and just come in under the field. For example, Devin Booker, game 1, conference finals, has by far the best game of the playoffs, maybe arguably his career in terms of that. He stinks it up in game 2. A lot of things that came out, like if you were under the field on Booker that day, he obviously, it was very hard for you to envision that outcome he had. He busted his nose, but Brook Lopez is not a Devin Booker type of offensive volume guy, but without Giannis obviously taking more shots, I just think there are more ways for him not to get there than any day. And I think the field is going to be really excited to play Brook Lopez, and I'm just going to be a tad under the field.
Same thing with Bobby Portis, where he's set to boom. We have him right there at the top of our boom bust tool for tonight. The expectations, he pops up in a ton of lineups, especially as an alternate as far as captain is concerned, even crunching some lineups on DraftKings. But as we can imagine, just like with Brook Lopez, there's a rush to roster Portis. He's the third. He's more owned tonight, predicted at least, and we can update that. But just as last I saw it, he was and still is more owned, even by a point, more owned than Trae Young. And that's after the Trae Young news. Yeah.
Obviously, Bobby Portis much cheaper than Trae Young, so that's like a huge factor. And Bobby Portis was sensational in the last game out. So, and you're saving $1,000 off of Brook Lopez, and if there are some lineups where you want to leave $1,000, go from Brolo to Bobby, I think that's one way to get different. And I think your upside is you're not missing out on that much of an upside. You can say Bobby Portis took 20 shot attempts last game, went 9 of 20. That is a ton of shot attempts for Bobby Portis. And obviously, he took the same number of shot attempts as Khris Middleton. So keep that in mind. So he can obviously shoot more efficiently, someone I think he can get going. But 6,200, where minutes could be up into the high 30s again if this game were to stay close. So Bobby Portis, yeah, I like that quite a bit. And he's not the craziest captain option to fit in other high-priced guys.
I know that for you personally, there's so much emphasis on Milwaukee, and I'm right there with you. I do wonder if there's even a small punt scenario that could play out where it's not Trae Young, but it's another Hawk that does pay off as far as a captain. Like, think of this way. Instead of the typical all green and one red where you're rostering Middleton or Holiday or maybe even Portis as your captain, is there a scenario you think where Bogdanovich, for example, is taking full advantage of whatever the hell's going on with Trae Young, who might be the most, not totally, but the most bulletproof to Young playing a bunch or not, paying off just because of volume, whereas you're still rostering the rest of your Bucks and you're feeling good about it?
For sure. Bogdanovich is a certified bucket. He's an amazing offensive player. Yeah, and he looks healthy. If you're playing the guy 39 minutes after obviously dealing with those knee injury at the end of the Philly series, seems like he's good to go. I like that call quite a bit. Someone who can get the 3-point bonus for you. Obviously, you're going to depend on a lot of shot volume for you to potentially pay off a captain type of performance, but that shot volume might be there for him. And he's usually not someone who gets a lot of peripherals. He's very scoring dependent. That's his downside. So, but I do think he has that upside scoring wise if he's going to play those amount of minutes.
Yeah, and I wonder, just outside of the captain spot, he becomes a very realistic option for me to get to. I know 8,800 though becomes, I don't know actually, because it's one game tonight. Trae Young is the only other high-priced guy. Kevin Huerter is another guy that I don't want to really get too much. A lot of it does have to do with his price tag. So the one guy that I don't really feel like I need to justify his price tag, even though you probably should, would be Bogdanovich. You know, Huerter and Trae Young, as we talked about, I probably won't want to get too much.
Yeah, it's Kevin Huerter also. I think he is obviously 3 of 12. So I think he's a much better shooter than 3 of 12 last time out. The minutes, I think, are also very safe for him. They're going to need him to shoot better from the field if they want to have any chance. Something that's kind of been interesting to see, obviously, without Trae Young the last 2 times out, 7 assists. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Trae Young missed last game. So 7 assists is unlikely. 7 assists the game before. I just think those numbers are going to come all the way down. So he's also someone you just need him to go 10 to 15 from the field, 10 of 16, 10 of 17. And that's how he gets there for you. So I'm kind of similar both with you. I just think with Trae Young coming back, I don't think those shot attempts are as secure as they were the last 2 games out.
There's so many Bucks, though, that I'm curious how you get to. And let's just look at the lower cost ones here before we start to flip to just workability, I guess, with Atlanta. And because we talked about Gallinari, 3,800. And some of this is also on the ownership projections, just that we have. And look, this is free for you to be using tonight. So just hit us up with a like, subscribe to the channel. You want to be part of the Awesemo community. It's $29.95 a week for Awesemo Plus. Basketball is going away soon, so you want to be well-versed now on baseball, UFC, get ready for football, everything going on. You want to be versed in this ahead of time before it's like, oh, man, my sport of choice is done. What do I do now? And with that, beyond the Hawks, of course, it's back to these bottom guys and trying to figure out how workable PJ Tucker, Bryn Forbes, these types of cheaper options that can be, and Pat Connaughton as well, who's really expected to boom tonight on our boom bust tool. And I was just looking at Connaughton's ownership. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty much as I would expect. Although I do feel like on this slate, if you are getting to Connaughton and if you are getting to Bryn Forbes, you're probably okay with leaving 25 to maybe 3K on the board.
Yeah, and that's like the game 3 aspect of it. They just need to have a super sitting performance. I think Bryn Forbes not getting enough minutes, obviously, was great in round one, has come down to earth in a hurry. But that's Bryn Forbes for you in a nutshell. You need him to knock down like 5-6 3-pointers in a game that's, I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. So I'm trying to like sprinkle those guys in as last guys in, but really tough to see like how much I would want to get above the field in that situation. It's a bit tough with those third tier Bucks guys, like you said, Tucker, Forbes, and Connaughton, just because, I just don't, for them to take double digit shot attempts, that's when I like, okay, I'll have a lot more interest. They just don't do that.
Interesting question here on the chat, and it kind of falls into what we've been talking about with Trae Young from Josh Fernandez, and it's up there on Odd Shopper, and I'm just trying to check where the value is, and it is over, and even we have it here as far as a 71% X win and a 39.2% return of investment to go over 8.5 assists. Josh Fernandez on the chat was asking about that, pretty adamantly actually asking about that. So I think he asked the second time just to make sure we didn't miss it the first time. And it's minus 105 on the payout, which is great. But again, if Trae Young is playing 28 plus minutes, I feel like that's the safest number to bet on across the board.
28 plus minutes. And what was the
8.5 assists? I'm looking at your face. You didn't seem to like it though.
8.5. So
is it too high?
Yeah, if he finds a way to mid 30s minutes, that's when I would be willing to do that. I think he does, and I think it's a solid take your chances type of line. It's the whole thing is how many minutes is Trae Young going to play? I think his floor, is high 20. It's like 30 minutes is his floor, and I think it's going to fluctuate from 30 to 40 minutes potentially. Obviously, I mean, the floor can be 0. He re-aggravates it right away, but you get what I mean. Yeah, it's not a bad line. I'm a little cautious just because of I'm coming back from injury. It's a little bit tough to take that type of chance. I'm a little cautious, but it could pan out.
All right, well then let me double back with another prop that is specific to Trae Young. And again, it's, I think, to the opposite of how we've been talking about Young's impact here, where Bogdanovich seems to be the one who we're the most confident it really doesn't matter, because even if Young is facilitating or Young is on the bench, there's going to be bucket opportunities. 16.5 seems low. And again, the over, it's juice to the under across the board. You can get it over 17.5 at one book on Odd Shopper as well, oddshopper.awesemo.com, where we are now and where you should be going for this. But as I was looking at Trae Young, and to your point about not really trusting the minutes there, I did notice bogey on that thing, and I'm thinking, wait a second, 6, I would think it would be more like 18.5 tonight, but that's a line that's reflective of the books believing that just Trae Young playing is going to take away productivity from others, which I would agree up until Bogdanovich. Does that make sense? Where I would go over 16.5 there, because no matter what's going on with Trae Young, Bogdanovich, I can get 18 from Bogdanovich tonight.
Yeah, it's a do or die situation for them. We can see a lot of like some Hawks, like Bogdanovich, Herter play 40 plus minutes. So if they're healthy, barring any foul trouble, things look good for them. And that over for Bogdanovich, I think that could definitely work out. And I like that better than the Trae Young one, as crazy as that sounds.
See, here's the beauty of everything, right? We set up the player props. We talk about it on Odd Shopper. These are active props that you can bet on books, and Odd Shopper is going to give you the best odds. But when you go over to No House Advantage, and those odds move, by the way, those shift. Trae Young's in, bang, the books move. We just talked about the line itself moving up a point and then back a half a point, and just seeing where it is now, 3.5. Man, you can get, depending on where you are, wow, and this is a pretty popular book that's offering it, plus 3.5 at minus 106. That's pretty damn good. Yeah. Look at your face. Go ahead and place that wager. Tell me as much time as you need, Rinpack. Place that wager. Go ahead, because I'm going to do it right now too. But I'll talk through it as you do it.
Yeah, that is quite nice.
That's beautiful.
That is very
Look, we
nice.
don't need Ben Rasa to tell us that's great value, right?
I think Ben Rasa was definitely tilted by these Bucks earlier in the series. Hopefully they have turned it around for him and everyone else as well.
The total, just so you know, has bumped up 5 points since earlier today. And I looked at this because I jumped in on an earlier in-game parlay with the Bucks winning and over 215.5. I have it at 220.5. Now, Odd Shopper, you can get it at 217.5 if you'd like to go over that as far as, but even pardon me, that's been updated to 219.5 is the lowest you can go over. It's pretty much under 220.5, and that's what I have consistently here. Are you a little surprised at that Trae Young, it seems as if that was the big motivating factor, that Young's return bumps it up? I mean, they blasted the total in game 5 without Trae Young or Giannis.
Yes. Yeah. I do think Trae Young, obviously being a defensive liability, the game should move a little bit more. So it's 5 points is a lot, but I definitely expected at least a couple points with him being back in the game. So
so I was saying, as far as No House Advantage, and this is tonight's sponsor, of course, where you should be going and taking advantage of over 500 player props, NBA, NHL, everything across the board, from PGA to the NFL upcoming, and now with the NBA, pardon me. And the best example we can give is that nothing has changed with Lou Williams. So Lou Williams is still predicted at 15.5 points for tonight, even with the return of Trae Young, and he's projected at 6.61. So No House Advantage has a 99.56% of that going under, and rightfully so. I mean, it would take Trae Young not playing at all tonight in order for that to even be remotely close to over 15.5. Same thing with his assists, 5.5, his points and assists, 20.5. So that's all that No House Advantage is giving you beyond the optimal lineups that Rimpak can tell you about as well. But it's really just for us using this as a great model and way to gauge where the best value is to place a bet on a player prop, and doing it here on No House Advantage. So we'll give you the code, as always, where you can take advantage of what we're doing and make sure that at checkout, because that's really what it's about, right? $20 deposit promo with our promo Awesemo. So AWESEMO, $20. That's insane, right? Though, with Lou Williams,
yeah,
15.5.
That's the one. That's the luxury of No House Advantage. You can find these spots and pivot your way to a great lineup over there, and especially smaller tournaments. Obviously, you have the luxury of beating the book, to essentially getting a lot of softer lines. I did see a comment in chat that I did want to address. I saw Trae Young. I did. No, it's about Trae Young warming up.
Oh, got it.
Prior to game 5 is when I saw Trae Young win. I did not see Trae Young warm up today. I will look for some sort of video to see how that happens. But I think he should be close to going. It's just his minutes and how he looks with the team is what I'm concerned about.
Got it. So just looking at the super chat, Doug Burdick with the gigantic one, and that's thanks to you, brother, by the way. Pack with a K next time, but Renpack helped me win a lot of shekels this season. I think at this point, Ryan's like, spell my name whatever you want. We get the $20 super chat. That's cool. I always said that with me. My name is impossible to spell. But big thanks to Renpack. Helped me win a lot of shekels this season. Who's your favorite Hawk for DK Cash? That's a gigantic super chat right there, Doug. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Doug.
The others as well.
Thank you so much, Doug. Glad I was part of your success, and cheers to continued success for yourself. But favorite Hawk in DraftKings Cash today. And this is tough. This is very tough because how I don't like the Hawks today at all. Capella coming in at $6,600. Seems like obviously the floor is there, but I think there's a way he plays 30-plus minutes potentially. So it might be Capella. Then, honestly, I don't like playing Gallinari at cash, but Gallinari is cheap. He's very cheap. So, yeah, Gallinari after that. Then it'll be probably Trae Young at that 10-2 price tag.
So Capella and Gallinari reluctantly?
Yeah, that's how. Yeah,
that's really it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me.
Okay, hold on real quick. I'm curious because I don't think that he necessarily full-on justifies a cash lineup roster, but it would be an interesting pivot. And I'll give Adam credit earlier on the strategy show this morning as he referenced that Cam Reddish's minutes have been due to fatigue, not because of the injury, not because of the Achilles, and not because of him slowly coming back. So there's a good possibility that he could hit his ceiling tonight if, in fact, he's in shape. And if, in fact, he's playing in a non-fatigued mode. So while I wouldn't strongly suggest nor even lead you to suggesting to the people that Cam Reddish is a solid lock for a cash lineup, with that kind of in the backdrop, is he at all a pivot, knowing that you're not really crazy about many Atlanta Hawks as far as a back-end last guy in on a cash lineup?
So I just think Gallinari's minutes are more safer than Reddish's just because of the insertion of Trae Young. But in large field tournaments, I love that pivot. In cash games, I would go to the Gallinari side of things, just because there's another, like I want to say Cam Reddish is more of a backcourt player than a front court player. Gallinari is strictly in the front court on the Sox team. So that's how I feel about that. But in large field tournaments, it makes for a great pivot, in my opinion.
Look, he's, from down the street from me, so I can't not insert him into the program, right? So blame my bias, my Norristown, Philadelphia bias.
That makes sense.
All right, another super chat here. Right, Bryson Henry, best utility play on DraftKings for you tonight.
Best utility play on DraftKings? That's a broad question.
Let me narrow it down for Bryson in case he just stepped in. And look, again, we remind you not only to hit the like button, get us up to 1K tonight for rostering with Rinpack, maybe in a little different way than you're used to. But beyond that, subscribe and hit the notification bell in case you miss something the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the show. You don't want that to happen the next time. So let me counter or maybe make it a little bit more manageable, if I will. It's really a matter of who you're not rostering as captain between Middleton, Portis, and Holiday based on what you've laid out. This is my interpretation. And my goodness, I hope I've been listening and comprehending at the very least what you've been saying. But my answer would be, all right, based on what Rinpack has laid out, it's probably going to be whoever you don't captain as far as Middleton, Portis, and Holiday.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's going to be a buck for me. That's if you land on one of the Buck starters, that's fine. I prefer to find a way to have Holiday and Middleton in that lineup and try to fix everything else and let everything else happen kind of through projections. But yeah, it's like you kind of ironed it out for me. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to go that route. That makes a lot of sense to make that happen.
All I did was just take everything you've said and write it in essay form, hoping that I'd pass, hoping that it wouldn't be like D-. Like, look, I'm going to pass you just so you don't have to repeat the class. But my God, can we get another host on next week?
No. That was good. That's good.
All right. Her TV on the super chat. Mr. Pack, how do you feel about Collins? We didn't really talk much about John Collins because, again, we've bypassed pretty much everybody but Clint Capella and Danilo Gallinari. But how do you feel about Collins and specifically on the super chat at the pro spot on FanDuel?
Yeah, I don't mind Collins just because there is a chance they go small and he gets the minutes run, right? If somehow Capella gets played off the court, foul trouble, and Collins, they won't be shy to go to him at the 5. And the FanDuel scoring works out for him, a very good steals and blocks player. So Collins definitely a fine option to consider, in my opinion. So I don't mind him as a pro spot. So yeah, just because keep in mind, there are times where they pulled Collins in terms of like maybe if Gallinari gets going, Collins probably is does not benefit from that. So if you somehow have Gallinari, it's a price thing. So it's actually fine on a 1-game slate. I wouldn't say like to make sure you only have one of those guys. So yeah, I think Collins in the pro spot's completely fine.
Total has dropped a point, just so people have an idea. But I'm fascinated by this to see if, in fact, I know we're like 11 minutes, even less than that, 10 and a half minutes out from lock here, and just trying to keep an eye on Odd Shopper as this thing moves up and down and seeing how it's been bet. Still 3.5. I'm surprised. Looks like we may coast in there. You got in, right? 3.5?
I did get 3.5 in, yeah.
Beautiful. Love
I
it.
Also, I got burned earlier in the series when I actually made a money line bet once. There was a book that was slow to get the line off when Trae Young was ruled out in game 4. Was that? Yeah, it was game
5.
4.
Was it 4? Okay.
Yeah, because Trae Young got ruled out for game 4.
In game.
No, before because
Geez,
it was
I'm
right
all
before
messed
game
up.
4.
Got it.
Because Giannis gets hurt in that same game.
Right.
Oh man, that was so sad. I was like, I thought it was a value bet. It was like made the most sense, and it just didn't work out.
So this is the way to make it all back.
Yeah, I hope so.
I love it. No, hope so. That's what's going to happen. The next time you and I chat, we'll bring this back, and then I'll have a shot of whiskey ready to cheers you.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan for me.
Beautiful stuff. A couple of things that we need to remind you about beyond, of course, as we have what's free for you tonight. And again, if you're taking advantage of it, the single game showdown ownership projections we've been showing. Tyler's been doing a fantastic job, as always, bringing it up. It's really an amazing tool to use, especially on these one-game slates where you are trying to beat the field or even pivot from the field, using Rinpack's advice here, looking at who's being heavily rostered in the captain spot for both sites. So you can take full advantage of that throughout the week. $29.95 for Awesemo Plus. And with football, we did talk about football. Fantasy football is right around the corner already, season long, best bet fantasy football teams, everything that's going in, the data, the analysis, the DFS content and tools into fantasy football. So just make sure you subscribe to the new Awesemo Fantasy Football and follow at Awesemo Fantasy on Twitter, as well as the Awesemo Fantasy Football Facebook page. So Awesemo Fantasy Football at Awesemo Fantasy and Awesemo Fantasy Football Facebook page. So beyond kind of the middle range, right? I am curious because when we are paying low for guys, there's really just a matter of how much is left on the board there. So in that Cam Reddish range, if you will, Okongwu's been boosted up to 2K. I know that there's been talk about Capella, kind of getting to Capella even overweight to the field. It would take some foul trouble or maybe just being pushed around by Brook Lopez to see some more minutes from Okongwu, who's been beefed up a little bit on this slate at 2K on DraftKings. Is there any interest now, low-owned punts on either side? And we could start, in the Okongwu, and even at Bryn Forbes at 1,600, who's got a decent percentage to boom. PJ Tucker, it's kind of guys that I don't necessarily think we're going to get to much, but maybe there's some variety, in tournaments. Yeah,
so I think Okongwu is someone, he's performing at a much elevated fantasy rate in these playoffs. In this series, I've always felt like, and it's like obviously a theory, role players play better at home in the playoffs. So Okongwu, someone can feed off of that home crowd. If Capella gets in foul trouble, he's shown the ability to catch quite a few lobs and be active on the defensive end as well. So 2K, I don't mind it. It's just because it's $2,000 and he maybe finds a way to 20 fantasy points in a really effective, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. So that's pathways there. If he's putting up 20 points and all the rest of the studs in your lineup show out, I think you're sitting pretty.
All right, we had a bunch here on the premium Slack, so we can go rapid fire and build an optimal, or at least throw out a couple of optimal names here. Devin RJJ on the premium Slack. Kevin Herter or Crazy Eyes?
Crazy Eyes.
Herter, but it's Kevin Herter or Portis.
It's Crazy Eyes for me.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
You didn't even let me finish with the pro on FanDuel. It could be there is no scenario tonight outside of who are you fading in which Herter beats Portis, right?
Herter can beat Portis. Obviously, Herter shown the ability to get hot from the outside. I just feel confident that Portis is going to play 36 plus minutes, barring any foul trouble, can get a double-double. Took 20 shot attempts last game. There's an ability for him to take around a similar number of shot attempts, perform at a better level than that potentially. So, there are ways where I'm excited to go to Bobby Portis for sure over Kevin Herter for those reasons.
Charles 3489, couple of guys that we've brought up in combo, but just kind of pitting them together. Reddish or Gallinari, last spot to plug in DK, single entry, or can go down to Okongwu.
It's going to be Gallinari.
Without a doubt, yeah. I was trying to just get back into the Reddish mode, but you'd call me out immediately for being a homer, so I've got no room at all.
I have a buddy of mine, a close family friend of mine. He thinks Cam Reddish is going to be an absolute stud. And a lot of people in his high school classes said Cam Reddish was like the hardest basketball player they had to guard growing up and the AU circuits and whatnot. So I think Cam Reddish is extremely talented player. Bad luck with injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I would like him to potentially get out of Atlanta, maybe where he can start and get more consistent minutes. It just seems like a log jam in the backcourt that could occur over the years in Atlanta.
Hey, I'll take him here. You know, we're making moves in Philly. So if there's an opening for him here, I'll gladly take him. And he's home too. Although a lot of guys don't like to go home because of all the distractions and everything that comes with it. But no, the answer, of course, is Gallinari. And I think safely Gallinari. Same thing again, like OB 96, Herter or Gallo. It's going to be Gallo. I feel like Gallo for you is not just a back end type play, but Gallo is as you said earlier, outside of Capella, the guy that you feel like you're going to get to the most in tournaments, even maybe in a cash lineup.
Yeah. So well, just looking at my lineups right now, I think Gallinari is my highest owned Hawk player just because of salary.
Nice.
As crazy as that sounds. So yeah, that's how I feel about Gallinari. I just need him to have a good offensive day, and that could definitely work out for us. 4 minutes to lock. So as I make sure everything is finalized on my end, just letting the chat know 4 minutes till these lineups lock. But yeah, Gallinari is how things are lining up for me. I like that to go take some chances there today, especially where you get the 3-point bonus. I think things can look pretty for you.
All right, let's help Jets World out. He's in the single bullet 555 DK. Mm-hmm. Capella or Lopez, last man in the roster. He is already playing Crazy Eyes.
I will take Lopez.
Okay, you didn't even flinch on that one.
Yeah, I'm just riding with the Bucks.
Now, did you hear on the broadcast the other night, by the way, when they referenced, like the first thing they referenced for Crazy Eyes was, I guess, a character in a show that I don't watch. Orange is the New Black.
Okay, I'm not a big show person, but
okay. So yeah. Crazy Eyes to me was always from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, okay.
But I guess not. All right.
I guess the shows might have to battle out to claim Bobby Portis.
That's fair. I don't know who wins on that one. Boss Bra, PJ or Patty C on FanDuel?
Oh, man. I just think that's as ugly as that sounds. It might have to be PJ Tucker just because the minutes just seem like he could play 15 to 16 more minutes than Pat Connaughton today. So that's going to be a tough thing to do. But, yeah, it's going to be PJ Tucker just because I think he plays that many more minutes than
here's the thing, especially – oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think I'm jumped in. I apologize. No. Do you really need to get to Connaughton tonight? And again, normally I think when you're trying to save money or you're trying to squeeze money in, but on a slate where the majority of salaries is or the majority of lineups are probably going to leave something on the board, do you really have to get to Connaughton tonight?
You don't have to get to Connaughton. He's
not to say that to redline him. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just meant in like a lot.
No, not too much. I don't think so. It's the salary works out okay. I'm just looking at my, I guess, best way on DraftKings to say Connaughton is 2,600. I'm getting more Connaughton than a Kongu, but that's like I guess the best way to explain how I feel about Connaughton. He's not that exciting in my opinion to go to. So I'm getting just on how much is he owned? How much projected ownership on Connaughton? I'm just getting a tad above the field, but it's close, just a tad above the field.
I did see one more here as we're winding down. I know that it's actually, I guess if you want to throw anybody optimal that you think that we haven't, like beyond Middleton, let's put Middleton Holiday aside. Optimal Capella, Gallinari on Atlanta, right? It's going to be hard to justify more than those.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to justify than on Atlanta side of things. Yeah, it's for me in preference it goes Gallinari, Bogdanovich, Young, and Capella in terms of like how I feel about those Hawks. It makes me kind of worried that am I going to miss the Kevin Herter explosion game?
Nope.
Where we get Clavo and Kevon Herter just like dropping bars at the end of the game. Who knows?
No, don't even put that into don't even speak that into existence, my friend. No, it's not going to happen. All right, we're locked. We're officially locked. Great stuff, my friend. Always a pleasure. Always feel like I have fun and learn at the same time, which is very difficult to do in life, as you know. So I think we've covered everything. Remember, of course, to pay attention to what's happening here on channel. We're right back tomorrow at 11 a.m. with an MLB deeper dive, Eric and Terry. So have a great night. Enjoy everything. Make sure you're following us across the board at Awesemo_com, at Awesemo NBA, at Rinpack, at Shander Show. Make sure you thank Tyler on the way out here for producing the show, and have a great night.